Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps, directed by Peter Segal, and it's in the year 2000. So this is a sequel, of course, to The Nutty Professor, which I reviewed maybe a few weeks ago now, or yeah, just over a week ago. And yeah, I thought it was a really bad film. It had so much, gross out humour, very, very, very offensive, and just a film that really I could not take seriously. I saw it quite, a bit as a kid, not too much, and I never really loved the film or anything, but it was really, really bad when I rewatched it, and yeah, basically Eddie Murphy was not good in that film for me, and of course, it's very, very famous for him playing all the different characters, of course with the prosthetics and the makeup and all that kind of stuff, and yes, it just that's about the only thing I could have really have praised for that film, and a couple of things here and there that were kind of human, and yeah. This one, the sequel is a lot worse acclaimed. It's got 4.3 or something like that on IMDb, which is a horrendous. It's a horrendous score. That's like some of the police academies. The really bad ones. What they have, and basically, yeah, it's not an acclaimed film. Very, very hated to be honest. And yeah, I mean the first one isn't popular at all, really, but this one even less so. And I hadn't seen this as well for quite a few years, and didn't know what to expect. I thought it'd be really, really horrendous, and I was holding out to be, for it to be worse than the first, and of course Tom Shadyac, I really like him as a director overall, but for me, Nutty Professor, the first one, was just a really bad film, and I didn't think he'd done a good job in directing or anything like that. And Eddie Murphy, when he's in his normal form, of course. Really, really bad. Now, of course, he's back in this one, and the Klumps, the clues in the name, it kind of focuses more on, the family of the Klumps, and basically, yeah, the family life, and you've got another romance in this film, Denise, played by Janet Jackson, and yes, that's interesting, but basically, yes, there's another romance in the film. Buddy Love, basically comes back in different ways to the first, but he's back and he's kind of, again, the kind of villain, you could say, if you want to say. There is a villain in the film, I suppose it's him. And yes, basically this time, he's taken over Sherman through the speech and everything at times. He's coming through and he's saying, he's making Sherman say things that he wouldn't, want to say. And yeah, it does different things in the final kind of act of the film. But mostly this is the main sort of plot to the film. It just explores this romance with Janet Jackson and, of course, character of Sherman Klump. And basically, it's kind of, at times very similar to the first. But for me, it's not quite as bad. And I know it's quite unpopular, but, I absolutely detested the first one, actually. And it was really offensive stuff. So this one, it's not quite as offensive at all, really like that. Because it doesn't really, play on the fat jokes as much at all. There's a couple of mentions here and there throughout the film of Sherman, of course, being, called large in many ways, different ways. But yeah, basically, it's not as constant, as the first one. You've not got quite as much Eddie Murphy actually, in his normal form, being as over the top. He is there, and he is bad when he is there, but not quite as bad as he was in the first one in this kind of role as Buddy Love, and basically as well, it's not as it's not as much him laughing hysterically at nothing. The first 15 minutes was probably definitely worse than the first, I was thinking, and there was a couple of moments actually to go further in terms of the just stupidity, and you could say the CGI and everything that was really, really bad in the first one is worse here at times. It's really, really bad. And as well, you've got a bizarre bit of the hamster goes massive. It's just pathetic, really. It starts, yes, it does stuff. Basically, it starts doing things, and because it's large, everything else is large that's coming out of it. You can kind of get the gist. I'm not going to go into that, because it's just mental. And as well, some man gets by this hamster, and it's absolutely bizarre. I'm not going to say what it is, of course, but wow, this film, it is pretty disgraceful overall, at times, and it is gross out a lot of the time, but not as much constant kind of over the top stuff excuse the noise, over the top stuff as the first, and basically, yeah, it kind of actually tells a bit more of a human story. It tries to go, I would say, the last 10 minutes. It does actually, pick up. That's probably the best part of the film. That was actually pretty decent. You could say it actually tries to go for more of emotion and actually, human stuff there, and yeah, it does try to move, and it modestly succeeds, in a couple of ways here and there. With that kind of last 10 minutes or so, with Sherman, what they do with him. Overall, I think Sherman is not quite. I think as a character, he's probably better here than he was in the first. And you've not got, as I say, as much one-note kind of weight jokes throughout the film. What this film does, is explore, of course, the Klumps more. It goes into their lives more, and they're in it more. And it's kind of a mixed bag with that. A lot of the time, it is absolutely horrendous, gross out humour. Other times, they are, I suppose, more enjoyable in this one. And I think I suppose it kind of uses them, less in line of kind of gimmicky, and yeah, you could say there's a couple of moments where it's not bad. This family life, what they're doing here, but really, it isn't good. And this film overall is a bad film for me. The writing is mostly terrible. The acting, mostly really bad. Janet Jackson isn't too good either. She's not bad in the film, but she's not great. And Eddie Murphy again is over the top when he's actually in his normal form. In terms of the other characters that he plays with all the makeup and everything, I'd say he's probably better than he was in the first. And there's just a couple more effective moments, really, you could say, than the first. But one thing here, to note actually is that Peter Segal, I think directs this film worse than the first one was directed. The actual shots, in this film are not good. They're really bad at times. Just really not good. The editing is not great either. And just the way he kind of moves the camera is just all over the place at times, and just very amateur. It's just so it's more of a poorly made film, I think. As well. And as I say, the script, is pretty bad for the most part. The Weiss brothers are actually involved in this, so that's pretty shocking. American Pie, About a Boy, of course, as well. It is a really, really bad script, and a couple of touching moments here and there, but really, mostly it's just it's pretty lazy. It's just at times really, really generic. There was a couple of stretches in this film where it was really boring for me, and just I suppose the actual lows of this film, as I say, are actually worse than the first. But then it does have an actual at times more emotion to the film, and I suppose the romance if I had to pick, it was probably better in this one. Not by miles, but it was better. Janet Jackson wasn't bad; she just wasn't that good. And yeah, it was only kind of it can only go so far really. But yeah, as well, you have got another dream sequence in this film, and that was disgraceful. I think that's. It's just really, really bad, that scene. The one where he goes into space and he's trying to stop an asteroid, and of course they reference Star Wars, which is just so original to do, and then it really pissed me off when you got really bad Star Wars references, because I absolutely love Star Wars and it's kind of offensive. And then to top that off, you've got 2001: A Space Odyssey reference. They play the Blue Danube for about 2 seconds. Just after the Star Wars reference, so got that in there as well. That's great. So we'll wrap up. I think this isn't an awful film, but it is pretty poorly made. In terms of the cinematography and everything. The direction is not good at all. It's probably it is worse than the first in terms of directing, and the editing and everything. And there's so many bizarre moments in this film. At times the Klumps are worse than they were in the first, but other times, they are more fleshed out, you could say, but very, very bare minimum. And there's a couple more, moments throughout the film that are a bit, more touching than the first. They're not really that human overall, as judging it as a film, but compare it to the first, it's not on that level. And as I say, it's not as offensive as the first, no way. But the CGI and everything is really bad again. It's probably worse than the first. There are things, as I say, overall that are worse, but overall, as a film, I think it's a bit better. You know, it is a bad film, but not quite really bad. And I'd have to give it a 36%. So yeah, you know, to round that up, that would be 2 stars kind of thing. The first one would be 1.5. But basically, it is a bad film, and it has got so many just gross out moments, stupid moments that are just so dumb in terms of writing and everything. And the performances again, they're not good. But yes, it does try and go for some emotion more than the first, and the last 10 minutes are actually pretty decent. And yeah, I just think it doesn't quite go there, and it has got a couple of moments that were, maybe quite funny, but not too much. But yes, it is a bad film, and but it's better than the first for me, and I still dislike this film. I just don't flat out detest it like I did the first one, and it's not as offensive. So there we go. My review for Nutty Professor 2, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but check it out if you want to see what you think. But for me, it's not a good comedy at all. It's a bad one, just not quite on the level of the first. So thanks for watching my review.